Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca from DevourDinner.com. Welcome to my kitchen and happy Sunday everybody. I'm excited to be here. I hope you are too. It's going to be a really fun question and answer today, and I'm going to show a fun tip using your Instant Pot on how to proof dough in half the amount of time. It is truly a game changer and something that I love to do, and I can't wait to show you at home how to do it too. So welcome as you join in. Please say hello, let me know where you're from, and we're gonna take just a moment to make sure our technology is all set up. We are live both on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's gonna be a fun day. I'm excited to be here. So welcome. Hi, Amy. Amy says cinnamon rolls, and they truly are. Oh, they're so good. We're just really gonna have some fun with making cinnamon rolls, and I'm gonna give you a couple of tips on how you can have these fresh and hot for Christmas morning. There's nothing better than waking up and having your house smell wonderful and having hot cinnamon rolls right out of the oven to serve to everybody as you begin your festivities and all that you have going on Christmas morning. So it'll be truly fun. Hi, Kathy. How are you? Kathy says, hi from the windy, cold Florida. The sound is good. Peggy says, I'm so excited. So let's just double check and make sure that we are live over on YouTube really fast. We'll just double check it. And, uh-oh, are we live? Are we live? We're live. Okay. So we are good over there. We can put the cell phone away. You guys are so fun. So fun. We hope to have Amy from the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners group join us, as well as anyone who's hopping over from the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners group. We love to have you. I'm Rebecca from DevourDinner.com, where I focus on easy to make recipes for busy families using common ingredients. And like I said, today I'm going to show you how I make cinnamon rolls and how I proofed the cinnamon rolls using the Instant Pot. I'm going to be using the yogurt setting. The yogurt setting is it's a great tip. The yogurt setting is just a nice, low, warm environment. And as we all know, for bread yeast dough to rise, it rises best in a warm environment. I know here in Eastern Idaho, it is bitter cold. And in the wintertime, it's very hard to get yeast dough to rise in my home because it is so chilly. This tip solves that problem because in that nice warm environment, it will double in size in no time. So let's get started. Let me drop a link to the recipe that I'm using. So we're using my 1 hour cinnamon roll recipe. There we go. Now, this is a huge recipe. I am cutting it in half. So we'll start that way. For starters, we're gonna use, where's my cursor? There we go. We're gonna use about 1.75 cups of warm water. We're gonna mix that with some salt. Now I'm using Redmond salt, that's why it's got a color to it. We're gonna add in a tablespoon of sugar. We've got a little piece of the salt that's floating, so I'm gonna pull that out. And then we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of active yeast. Now, this is a step that you don't have to do. I like to do it. I think I'm old school, going back from when I was really young and my mom taught me how to do bread, of just letting the yeast kind of activate with some warm water before throwing it in to all the other ingredients. And so I still do it. But with this quick acting yeast, you don't have to do this step. So let me be the first to say that. But I do like to just let it do its thing. We give it a stir, and then I set it off to the side for like 10 to 12 minutes, and it'll just start bubbling up, and it'll get really big and fluffy and whatever. We also need to add to it 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. So in this bowl is 1 3/4 cup of warm water. with a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, a tablespoon, tablespoon and a half of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, and I've got 3 tablespoons of yeast. And this recipe, let me tell you, this recipe goes way, way, way back to when I was little. It has saved me over and over. All right, we're just gonna let that do its thing and get these bowls out of the way. Now we're gonna mix it up in my Bosch mixer. You do need a stand mixer for this. You're not gonna be able to use a hand mixer, even if you have the dough hooks. Yeast dough is a lot tougher, it's thicker, and having a stand mixer really does make a difference. Of course, you can knead it by hand. And let me tell you, I have a son who enjoys kneading by hand. He will use this recipe and he will knead by hand and he gets great results too. So there's lots of different ways to utilize this recipe. The recipe is going to call for about 5 cups of flour. Why would a recipe call for about 5 cups? Do you guys have any idea? I want to see in the comments before I answer my own question. I want to teach you today. Uh-oh. Amy says, grr, you say old school like it's a bad thing. I'm not sure most of us would be considered old school, and I'm proud of that fact. You know what? You're right. I think when I say old school, it's because I was so little. Like my mom started me in the kitchen using a Bosch with her when I was like 4 and 5 years old. And I'm a long time since 4 and 5 years old at this point. And I also know that all of my younger friends have never learned how to do this. And so it's possible that I get the old school method from them because they call me old school. So maybe that's why. But like I said, I still do it. All right, I'm seeing hearts, so I hope you agree. Irene says, I love the cinnamon rolls. Hey, Natalie, how are you? Natalie says, do the yeast have to be quick rise or can I use traditional? You can use traditional yeast, but if you're using traditional yeast, make sure you do that step because super important that way. Hey, Amy's here. Hey, Amy, we've already welcomed you, but welcome again. And we welcome all of those from the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners group. If you're joining in, we sure appreciate having you here. And I'm Rebecca from Devour Dinner. So today we are working on cinnamon rolls. And I know you're scratching your head saying, how do I do cinnamon rolls in the Instant Pot? That seems weird. But we're going to use the yogurt feature to proof our dough. So we've got our yeast kind of doing its thing. And I'm going to pull my Bosch over. Okay. I started with a Bosch from when I was very little, and I love my Bosch, especially when it comes to dough and mixes because it makes a big deal. Now, I've been doing cinnamon rolls and dough all morning. So you're going to see that my bowl is going to look like it because I just barely made a batch, just barely before we went live. And I'm going to use the same thing. Now, when I start, you know what? I didn't see if you guys answered the question on 5 cups of dough. All right, Peggy says you might need more, you might need less flour. It's the right consistency. That's exactly it. But what changes the consistency? Well, I'll tell you. The recipe calls for 1 3/4 cup of water. But maybe how I measure 1 3/4 cup is a little bit different than how you measure 1 3/4 cup. Your eggs might be large or extra large compared to my eggs, which is more liquid. And so to balance that out, you have to put a little bit more or a little bit less. I also know on days that it's raining and storming outside and there's a lot of moisture in the air, my flour is different. And so we go by texture. So to start this out, I'm going to put about half of the flour into my mixing bowl. Now, I have already measured about 5 cups in the bowl. I know some of you at home are going, oh my gosh, this is too much. It's really not. But I put about half in the dough or in the bowl. And then look at this. It's only been a couple of minutes, but this is already, in fact, you can see it if you look face forward. See how you can tell how it's bubbled up? Like there's that inch. It's already started to activate, and that's what I love. So I'm going to turn this on. It's going to get a little loud for a minute. Bear with me. And I'm just going to pour this in. All right, then the recipe only calls for 2 eggs. Always crack your eggs in a separate bowl so that you don't get any eggshells into your batch that you're doing. Super important. So there's our 1 egg. And our 2. We're gonna let that kind of mix together and just kind of incorporate the egg with our yeast and about half of the flour. Then we're gonna start gradually adding the rest of our flour in. Now we can put our top ring on to help kind of contain it. We're just gonna let it do its thing. We need it to knead for a number of minutes. All right, I'm reading Amy's comment, Amy Ovard, who says, me, Amy, or the other Amy? Guys, when there's so many of you with the same names, you make it difficult on me, I promise. All right, if you're having problems with it freezing, go out and come back in. It looks like everyone else is doing okay. Sigrid says, I've never heard of the Bosch mixer. Really? The Bosch mixer is known for its heavy duty motor. I can do 10 cups of flour. I think it says you can do up to 16 cups of flour in a Bosch mixer. So you can do big batches of whether it's cookies or breads or whatever. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. Do you see how the color has changed a little bit because the eggs have incorporated in? I'm gonna go ahead and start adding in some more flour. Because ultimately we want this to be a dough, right? We want it to come together. We want it to pull away from the sides of the bowl. Super important. We want it to all knead together, all the things. And you're gonna wanna let your dough run for a good 7 to 9 minutes to really knead. That's important. You guys are too fun. Can you hear me talking over the mixer? I want to see a bunch of hearts if you can hear me talk over the mixer. I want to get this to the consistency that we need, and then I'll turn this off. So you can see that it's pulled everything away from the sides, but actually it's not doing too bad. I want to be able to touch the dough. Yeah, this is actually really good. You want to touch the dough, but you don't want it to stick to your fingers. So you can see it's just barely sticking, but it's not done mixing, right? And that's why you needed that kneading process. So right now, like this stuff in the center is a lot softer than this stuff on the outside. And so we want to let this run to really do its thing so we can get that consistency where we want it. And as it does that, you're gonna notice sometimes it's gonna clump in a ball and sometimes it's not. And that's the whole kneading process. I also love that I have full access from the top to see what's going on, where on some of the other mixers, you don't have the full access on top. That makes a big difference too. Oh, Sigrid, thank you. Sigrid says, we can hear you. I'm trying to talk loud. My microphone is right above my head, so hopefully that makes a difference. I love to watch it. You can see how it spreads out, and then it'll clump up and it'll go around fast and it'll spread back out. That's because we're getting a really good knead going on with our dough hook. All right. Normally I wouldn't turn this on and off as much, but I just really want to see this texture. Yeah. Out here on the edge, I like this texture out on the edge. So you really want just a nice, pliable, soft dough mixture. Okay, that's really what you want. And so we're gonna let this run, but you guys know I already have another batch proofing. And it's like ready. It's like so ready. So we're gonna just move some things around. We're gonna push this off to the side, do our little magic. And we're gonna grab the Instant Pot. How are we gonna do this? I got way too much happening over here today, you guys. Way too much. Okay, when the dough is done mixing, what you're gonna do is you're going to pull it out into a ball, just kind of knead it into a nice smooth ball. And then you're going to put it in your Instant Pot. You can put it on the yogurt setting, spray your liner, and you're gonna put it in the pressure cooker on low. And you noticed that I had a dinner plate that was on top. Make sure to spray the back of your dinner plate because as that dough rises, it's gonna touch the bottom of your plate and it's gonna stick to it. So if you have non-cooking or the cooking spray, it will keep it from sticking. That's what we're gonna use to proof our dough. Now, this dough has been proofing. Oh, I just unplugged it. It said 16 minutes, which is about right because I threw it in there right before I went live and it's 17 minutes past the hour. So in 16 minutes, I took a ball that was this size and did this. Okay? I need like a cheer, song, and dance. Are you kidding me? That's how fast you can proof dough in the pressure cooker. And it is a game changer because I remember having to proof dough for 45 minutes or an hour and a half or 2 hours, and it takes all day. No, you can cut dough in half the time. And this dough is so soft, like so soft. Look at this. Do you see how I can just kind of play with this dough? It's amazing, amazing. So should we make cinnamon rolls now? That's the trick. Use the yogurt setting. You can have it on the regular setting or on the low setting. Don't put it on the high setting, it's too hot. Put it on the regular, on the low, and then only pull out however much dough you want to work with. This is a large amount, so I'm only gonna pull out half of it at a time to work with, and I'm gonna mix up my cinnamon rolls half at a time. You'll see what I'm gonna do. So now I need you guys to vote. We don't have very many of you on here today. We're gonna vote. I can do eggnog cinnamon rolls, or I can do traditional cinnamon rolls. What do you guys wanna see? Put your comments in the comment of whatever you wanna see. Irene says, wow, that's fantastic. Amy from the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners says, I love using the Instant Pot for dough. Peggy says, woohoo. Kathy says, awesome. Hi, Chris, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. Sigrid is asking the question, do you spray the liner before you put the dough in? Yes, use cooking spray and spray your liner, then put your dough in. And after I form the dough, this dough needs to mix longer, but let me just show you. So here's the dough, right? And it's just, so I just take it and I just start working it until I can get it kind of into a smooth ball. Because you know, when you pull it out, it's just all weird and whatever. So now I have a smooth ball, right? And I spray my liner and I drop it down in the liner so that this portion can get covered in this nonstick spray, and then I flip it over. And then I put my lid on top, but I also spray the bottom of my lid so that when this rises and it touches the lid, it doesn't stick. But you can just see how nice this dough is. It's just, oh, it's wonderful. It really is. So we're just gonna set that back in there, let it do its thing for a minute, and I'll worry about that dough later. All right, did you guys vote yet? Amy says traditional. Peggy says, ooh, eggnog sounds yummy. And there's only 2 votes. Oh no, Natalie says traditional, Polly says Bill says eggnog. Chris says traditional. Okay, traditional's gonna win. But for you eggnog loving fans, I'm gonna tell you, don't worry. Okay, you can see how I can just touch this dough. Now watch. What I do is I just kind of poke down the middle, right? I just make myself a little line, and then I open my fingers up, and I'm gonna go from this side to this side, and I'm gonna go clear to the bottom, and I'm gonna pinch my fingers closed. And that's what breaks the dough. Okay? Put your lid back on top because it's still warm environment there. Then on your work surface, sprinkle some flour. I'm sprinkling with my left hand. This feels so awkward. Okay. Okay. Oh, well, we'll put it right there. I like to get a little flour on top, kind of shape it, and then we're just going to roll it out. Remember, we want to make kind of a rectangle. I don't make my rectangle very big because I do like a nice thick swirl. Some people like a nice thin layer of cinnamon roll, but lots of rolls. It doesn't matter. You can do it any which way. It truly doesn't matter. Now, if you were going to do eggnog cinnamon rolls, the only difference right here in this process is what you're putting on top of it, right? So traditionally, we put butter, brown sugar, maybe some white sugar, and some cinnamon, right? This rectangle is not very rectangle-ish, but we're just gonna, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna leave it as it is. Now I'm gonna take some butter. This butter is softened butter, and this is really soft butter. So this would be too soft for cookies. This is like almost to the mush stage because I literally can just spread this butter like no other. And I'm using about, I don't know, 3 tablespoons. You know, some people like more, some people like less. There's no wrong answer when it comes to cinnamon rolls. I'm gonna be honest. Spread that around. Push this off to the side. And then we're gonna put some white sugar on. And I do like the combination of both the white sugar and the brown sugar. So this is one of those steps. You don't have to use white sugar if you prefer not to. And then we're gonna use some brown sugar as well. And I just like to crumble it. And then we'll kind of smooth it out. And I know you're gonna ask me, well, how much do you use? I measure with the heart, you guys. I want it to be covered. All right, and then I start just spreading it out. So as you can see, I kind of get it spotty all over. And then the areas that are thicker, I just kind of go over, spread it out. And then if I need to add more, I probably added, realistically, just over half of a cup is probably about what this is. I do like to get it as close to these edges because one of these edges is that center swirl. So this edge in particular, I do like to have it all the way up to the edges, and I like it all the way out to the edges because I want all of these little cinnamon rolls on these edges to have as much love as the center does. This part up here is the part that we tuck and we pinch, and so it's okay if it doesn't go quite to that edge. Looking good? I think it looks great. All right, now let's put some cinnamon on it. So cinnamon, you're gonna use about a tablespoon, maybe just half a tablespoon. Again, I go by what it looks like. Now, if I was making this eggnog, I would do the same thing up until this point, and then I would add some ground ginger and a little bit of ground cloves, and I would do the same thing. So the cinnamon that I just added, like half a tablespoon, I'm only gonna add like 3/4 of a teaspoon of ginger. And then I'm gonna do like a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. It's the only difference, to roll it up. The other fun thing you can add into your cinnamon rolls is cinnamon chips. That's really yummy too. All right, now I just kind of lift it up, and then we're just gonna start rolling this over. And I love how thick and soft this dough is. And then we're just gonna pull it up and pinch it. And typically that butter that's on those edges will help give it a little bit of moisture to pinch it all together. It's never very pretty when it gets pinched. I haven't perfected that part of it. Okay, there we go. Now, get your pan. Okay, spray your pan. Make sure you get those edges. And then we're going to fill the pan around the outside, and we're gonna put 1 or 2 on the inside, depending upon how it fits. All right? Now there's a couple of ways you can cut your cinnamon rolls. You can use like thread. Some people use dental floss, but don't use the mint dental floss. Use the non-flavored dental floss, and you pull it through and it cuts perfectly. I'm just gonna use a knife because this dough does so well and it doesn't squish. I do like my cinnamon rolls fairly wide, so they're about 3 fingers wide. And I just carefully saw back and forth, and you can see how easily we just slice through each of these cinnamon rolls. Okay, then I'm just gonna take these and I'm gonna fill this up. Now, I always start with the center. I don't know why. This is one of those quirky things. It doesn't matter, right? They're all gonna make it into this pan or another pan, but I always start with the center. It's just what I do. I think it's because I take the big ones and I offset them from each other. And then I work my way around. It's the only thing that I can come up with is so that I don't have all of the big center thick ones together, right? Look at that. I'm gonna move this over. I wonder if we can I'm gonna tuck this little guy right here, and then I'm gonna tuck this little guy right in the middle, okay? And if you notice, what do I have left? I have my 2 ends. These are kind of those pieces that you could bake them up if you were on a regular baking sheet, but they don't turn out that good. So this is what we have. Now at this point, I know you're gonna ask, do you do a second rise? I sort of do a second rise. So typically what I'll do is I will take like a cheesecloth or a really thin dish towel, and I'll lay it over the top, and then I will go and preheat my oven. My oven takes about 8 to 9 minutes to preheat. And so while the oven is preheating, then these are just kind of poofing and rising. But these will rise and fill out while they're baking as well. Okay? I'm gonna push this off to the side for a minute. We're gonna clean this up, but we got more dough. So I want to, oh, one more thing. If these were eggnog cinnamon rolls, if they were, I would then pour about, maybe not quite a half of a cup of eggnog right on the top. I would drizzle that around so that it can bake in the eggnog. The eggnog mixes with all of that brown sugar, and it is heavenly. Now with that said, you can add heavy whipping cream to this and do the same thing. but it's really fun to use eggnog and get those eggnog flavors, all right? If you're using eggnog or heavy cream, I'm using a springform pan right here, which you can see. Make sure you wrap the bottom of your pan in aluminum foil because your cream will leak out and it will burn all over the bottom of your oven, and it'll smoke and it'll smell bad and it'll cause all kinds of things. So don't be like me because I already did that this morning. Make sure you wrap it. Now you know. All right, let me clean this up and let's make the other one really fast. Oh, we're gonna have a dough problem. Okay. These other ones we're just gonna make simple, regular, nothing fancy. Oh, I wanna show you this. Okay, you remember how small that dough was before? Look, it grew. So even while we were taking the time to make this batch over here, this is still growing. Isn't that crazy? Now, of course, when you start moving it and stuff, it does shrink down for you a little bit, but you get the gist of it. So we're just gonna do the same thing. My workspace is seemingly feeling a little tight with everything I've got on my counter space. All right, who has used the printables that I made last week? Kathy says, where are the raisins? Kathy, listen, friend. I don't like raisins in my cinnamon rolls. Like, I really don't. But you can add them. We can still be friends. But I really don't like raisins in my cinnamon rolls. That's why there aren't any. Sadly, my kids have never been raised on raisins in their cinnamon rolls either. Polly's asking, can you add raisins or small dices of apple before you roll it? Absolutely, you can. You can absolutely add either one of those. If you're gonna do apples, make sure they're diced really small and make sure that you've pulled out any reserved like liquid, because any of the liquid that gets added from any fruit pieces does change what goes on. All right, we're gonna add sugar. And then we're gonna add some brown sugar. Now you can add nuts. Did you guys ever grow up with nuts in your cinnamon rolls? I grew up with walnuts. So I grew up in Northern California and walnuts are big there. Like, we had walnut trees. Of course, we didn't eat the walnuts from our walnut trees, but we had walnut trees. So my mom would chop up, she had an old nut grinder. It was like a little glass thing and a thing on top with kind of like a funnel, and you put the nuts in it and then you'd crank the little thing. That's memories. I haven't thought about that in like forever. I'm gonna have to tell my mom that I remembered that. Okay, now I said before, I cut the dough in half and do this twice. You don't have to. I do it more because of my workspace and what I'm working with. If you have if I didn't have all of this stuff on the bar, I would have done one big. But it's just too big for me to try to do all at once. And again, I just kind of go by color on what that looks like. We're gonna call that good. So you could put raisins, you could put apples, you could put walnuts, you can put pecans. I actually wish I had thought of pecans because I would have done that. That kind of sounds good. And then we're just gonna roll this up. Now this one I'm just going to place regular on a baking sheet. It's not going to be enough to fill the baking sheet, but that's okay. We're gonna do what we can. Because I want to show you some baked cinnamon rolls. We'll leave that like that. All right. You know, you remember my pan over here. I do have my little ones from the last bit. And again, I always go for the center. It's one of those things. We're gonna make these a little closer. So now these are gonna sit for a little bit longer. Do you guys ever bake up the edges? My kids love them. Oh, so there's a question, my husband is telling me there's a question on how thick do I do the dough. Let me show you. Let me get rid of this. And I'm going to address that right here because you can see a nice swirl pattern and it's great. I'm going to clean this off. Get out of the way, and now let's come bring it center. Okay, so looking at these cinnamon rolls, do you see how thick that is? If you joined me earlier, you know you heard me say, I like a thick swirl pattern. I like a thick amount of dough. Some people like really, really thin dough, but like to roll it a whole bunch of times so that you have all the layers over and over and over and over and over again. Whichever is your preference is fine. This is my preference. I like that it only has like a smaller swirl pattern. That's me. If you want more of a pattern, spread your dough, your rectangle out bigger so that you have to roll it more. Does that make sense? Doesn't change the taste necessarily. It's gonna change the texture a little bit because you're gonna have all those layers that go on. So hopefully that helped answer the question. All right, this we're gonna cover with a sheet of a towel. So I'm gonna pass these off in the microwave. Will you grab me what I need from the microwave? We're gonna pass both of these off and cover them up. So that's what it looks like. Now remember, if we put in heavy whipping cream or eggnog, make sure you put foil on the bottom so as it bakes, it doesn't leak through and cause a problem in your oven. Hold on. Just put a towel or something over. All right, look what we got. Are those beautiful? So these are actually eggnog cinnamon rolls because that's what I made earlier. And we're gonna get out some frosting. Oh, there go the hearts. I see the hearts. All right, so I have made a yummy, thick cream cheese frosting because heaven knows, cream cheese frosting on cinnamon rolls is like heavenly, right? And the recipe for the cream cheese frosting is right there with what we got, with the recipe itself. So I'm gonna use about half of this because of course, we know it made like 2 batches, right? But I like a good thick cinnamon roll. Or a good thick frosting on the top. Now, if I was to have poured this on when these were hot, you would see the frosting dripping down the sides. You would see them melting into the center. Of course, that is wonderful. I like to wait till they've cooled down a little bit so they're still warm, but they're not hot, which allows the frosting to kind of hold tight. I do prefer that. And then I meant to grab, I'm gonna have to grab it off screen. Can you grab those sprinkles? Yep, those ones. All right, doesn't that look good? Hold on. Because this is an eggnog cinnamon roll, it has a cream cheese frosting on top. I have these cute, see if you guys can see those. There we go. Can you see those? These are little gingerbread men. Little gingerbread men sprinkles. I just think it's fun. It's festive. It just adds to it. You could also garnish, if you're doing the eggnog, with a little bit of ground nutmeg. Is kind of fun to do a little sprinkle on top. You can see I'm only using like a tablespoon or less of sprinkles, right? We'll put those right there. I'm gonna clean off my hands because my hands feel covered today. Oh, Irene, good question. Irene's question says, how much longer would you bake it with the eggnog? So whether you're baking it with the eggnog or with the heavy whipping cream, it's going to take a few minutes longer. Typically, I bake 350 for, I don't know, 13 to 15 minutes. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer. Earlier today, these took longer. These took like almost 18 minutes before I got them to where I wanted them to be. Kind of fun, right? This is a wonderful neighbor gift. Do you see how easy this was? We have only been live 42 minutes. I know we didn't bake and I know we didn't proof live on screen. The point is, this is easy and can be done. And you can just come in. I didn't get an extra plate, but I'm gonna dive into these. We're gonna pull one of these out. I'm gonna be a sticky mess. Woohoo. I'm just taking it, look. It didn't take the whole centerpiece, but the bottom is so like caramely and like soft and moist, and you can see the layer. I'm telling you, oh my gosh. That eggnog is delicious. So yummy. I'm gonna have frosting all over me. Like truly. All over me. Sherry says, can't have cinnamon rolls without cream cheese frosting. Amy, what was your stupid joke? Shoot, I missed it. You guys. Peggy says, wow, so easy. It is so easy. Like, growing up, it's amazing how much harder it was to do bread dough. And I was horrible at it when I first got married. My dough wouldn't rise. My cinnamon rolls would fall flat. I'd bake them and they'd still fall flat. And it was miserable. And I thought I was like a washout. And then I was reminded of this recipe because I wasn't using it. I was using my friend's recipes. And it was like, oh, that's right. This recipe, the dough has stability. So the dough, let's see if I can show you this. Okay, the dough has stability, right? Look, I can squeeze it, but it like springs back. It's like spongy, okay? So it has some oomph. When you take a bite, there's something there. You know how sometimes cinnamon rolls, you take a bite and it deflates and it's like nothing? And you're like, that was a loss? No, this dough is like heavenly. And it rises and it's so easy to work with. Hi, Candace, how are you? Candace says, looks delicious. All right. What questions did I miss? Oh, Natalie, can the dough be frozen? All right, remember how I said, I'm gonna tell you a trick for Christmas morning. You can freeze the dough. I don't love it, I'm gonna be honest, but you can. So you can make it just like I have, right? In the pan, cover it, let it cover it up and throw it in your freezer. Bring it out of your freezer, let it thaw and let it kind of proof and puff up a little bit before you bake it. What I prefer to do is on Christmas Eve, after the kids have gone to bed, make the dough, make the cinnamon rolls, get it in the pan, cover the pan with your plastic wrap and throw it in the fridge. it's gonna rise really slowly in the fridge all night long. The next morning, get up, pop it in the oven, bake it. You have hot cinnamon rolls, perfect in the morning, and your kitchen is all cleaned up, and it's so easy, so easy. So that's my other little trick. Let's see, you guys. Amy says, Rebecca, I may need you to send me some fresh cinnamon rolls tomorrow to Sandy, Utah for my birthday. Hey, it's your birthday, Amy? You only live down in Sandy? That's really not too far from you. That's funny. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. We've been celebrating birthdays all week long. My parents' birthdays, ironically, are in the same week. And so we've been celebrating birthdays. All right. Did I miss?
How long to hand knead?
Oh, if you're hand kneading. So here's a question somebody's asking. If you're hand kneading the dough, oh gosh, I don't even know a time on that. If any of you have an estimate, chime in, please. Because it really comes down to your consistency, right? You want those glutens to kind of open up and relax and do all the things that they need to do that kneading takes. And so if I'm kneading in a mixer for, 7 to 9 minutes, if you're kneading by hand, you're going to need to double, if not triple that, because your hand kneading is a slower process. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Look at all those birthday wishes. Kathy, did that answer your question on how long to hand knead? Sigrid says, another great demo. I'm guessing you will not be live the next 2 weeks. Enjoy the holiday, everyone. That is correct. So next Sunday is Christmas Eve. I will be spending Christmas Eve with my family, and my littles will be here, little miss and little honey bear. We've been calling her little sis. So you might hear me call her little sis. They will be here. We are enamored to have them. So I will not be live next Sunday. The following Sunday is New Year's Eve. I will not be live on New Year's Eve. Now there's a possibility that I might randomly go live sometime in the next 2 weeks with Little Miss, and we might bake some cookies or something of that nature. But it would be totally off the cuff, and you would just have to catch it or catch the replay. We won't broadcast or advertise it. We'll just go live. But there's a possibility that we'll do that because Little Miss and I do love to get in the kitchen, and she's excited to come to her Mimi's house and bake and have some fun that way. So if we do, I'll bring her live and you can see her because I know you guys miss her. It's been so long since she's been on one of these lives, and maybe we can get little honey bear on a live too. It'll be fun that way. Super fun. All right, everybody. Once again, thank you to Amy at the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners group. Thank you to all those who hopped over from the Instant Pot 101 for Beginners group. It's always great to be here. It's a special time of year, however you choose to celebrate this season. I hope you slow down a little bit and count your blessings. I know that sometimes sounds a little cliche, but slow down a little bit. The world is busy. There's a lot going on. And try to remember the reason for the season, the time that we spend together with family, with friends, to build memories, to create moments together, to share our love with one another. It's not about the gifts. It's about the time that we spend together. So I hope that your season is just truly merry and truly blessed. I'm so grateful that you come and you support and you watch my lives and you're a part of my kitchen and my home. And anytime you use my recipes for the holidays, it just makes me smile and I love it. So if you've used my recipes, please leave a review over on the recipe itself. Leave a comment so that I know. Share those with me. It means the world to me. It truly does. All right, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. All of the things. Keep watching, and there's lots of good stuff coming down the pipeline. In the meantime, have a great week. Be kind. Bye now.